properly attached, we need to put aluminum or like a piece of pipe on between window because those wood is hollow, and it's impossible to attach our window to the wood mullions properly.
Okay, because it's going from like 4 inches to 1 1/4, I think.
The thing is, we can match the window for the exterior capping. It's gonna look pretty much the same thing. The mold will not have the same tip, but at the end, the final result, you're gonna have the 4 inches on between windows.
Thank you. Do we, as a group, agree with all of the conditions, or do we want to revisit any of the conditions?
Well, I'm not clear about where the applicant stands with respect to the conditions 1 through 3. Are you able to abide by those conditions?
So it looks like 3 we were good with. So it was just 1 and 2, I think.
Yes, 3. Yes, we are fine with condition number 3. Condition number 2, I would say it will visually match the existing. The materials might be slightly different, but I can confirm, I think you asked about an aluminum cap, and yes, that's essentially, I think, what it is. But if you tap exterior on the exterior part of the window, on the interior, I think it's still wood, but on the exterior, it at some point was either replaced with aluminum or maybe that was part of the original. But we can keep the same look of the exterior for condition number 2. I don't believe it's possible to have the existing wood mullions remain. And then for condition number 1, if that is definitely a condition and it needs to, so let me just clarify. So right now it is 1 window, but it looks like it's 2 because it's got the separation in the middle. Mm-hmm. So you would be okay with, we would just need to get a different type of window so that it has that separation in the middle. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Okay. We do that. We'd have to talk about it. But
We can change, but the window.
Would you mind stepping up? Or
sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
The window on between those pieces of glass, you had a separation right now.
Okay.
I can show you a picture how look 2 slider, if you can compare to the opening you have right now.
Okay. Can we look at a? Yes.
We have it in the presentation.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Is it the same photos I already have in the presentation?
No, I gonna show you like for something recent how look.
Okay. All right, then yeah, you can put it down there.
This one is 3 slider. You see the on between glass you had a.
Would you mind just stepping up to the microphone really quick? Thank you.
So are you suggesting a slider?
Yeah, that's right now. That one is 3 slider. The one she have right now is 2 slider. You see like the white streak on between 2 glass. She's gonna have the same thing on the 2 light, but on the middle, it will look pretty much the same she have right now.
So it would be a slider.
Yes, that's the one you choose right now.
Okay. Would you mind, I'm sorry, would you mind pulling up 1 through 7 again, just so that we can look at it? Okay.
So just to clarify, the existing is 2 movable awning windows right now.
Yes.
So they lift up. And so it sounds like you could potentially do a slider, which would leave you with that division in the center. Mm-hmm. The same thing would happen with an awning, or if you did 2 separate fixed light in the center, which is what the staff condition was potentially contemplating. I did not contemplate a slider in that, so.
Okay.
You may be looking at an edit at number 1 then.
Okay.
And number 12 is the one that we're kind of unsure of the date, correct?
Yeah, number 12 is the one on the infill on the front porch, and it sounds like Commissioner Jeffrey said that might have been done around the 80s, which there is a permit for the siding on the house at the time, which I think in the staff report I mentioned might have been part of a larger project. We just didn't have, there's not a whole lot of permit details from that time period.
Okay.
And for the mullions, some of the changes could have been made previously. Typically what you have is some framing wood in the center there. It sounds like that might have been taken out over the years. It is typical to leave the wood mullions in the center, especially if you have the framing, the 2x4 or whatever framing in the center still. If that's not existing, you could always recreate it with wood and then put the 2 individual windows in, or use the options are to use that or to go back and frame it out with wood.
And that's what number 2 is stating.
Yeah, and that is typical. You typically had to have a lot more in the center because you had the sash packs. Essentially, you had the pulleys and everything else. I'm sorry, not the sash packs, the pulleys and all the functioning. You had the double width in the center because you had 2 windows next to each other. So there essentially is a pocket in there for all of that to function.
Okay. Okay, so can we pull up 1 through 7? So sounds like we'll need to discuss an edit to number 1 regarding the potential for a sliding window replacement to keep that middle divide.
If I could comment. I think, wasn't the other option to do 2 fixed windows versus a slider? I mean, I think that's what you had recommended in your staff report.
I pondered, frankly, I didn't ponder the slider, and it's not unheard of. It is something that would have a similar appearance. You're just going to have the sash, the difference in the level of the recess of each sash, because one has to go behind the other. So I just pondered the, awning configuration or a fixed light configuration, which would still give you that piece down the center that looks like they're 2 separate windows. They don't necessarily have to function the same way.
And I'm sorry, what side? This is not on the facade. This is on like the side of the house.
This is on the front.
It's on the front.
It's on the very front, yep. So it is, let's go back to the main house. And that's from the FMSF photo, but it is this piece on the right-hand side of the house.
Thank you.
I think I'd prefer that it either be 2 fixed panels or 2 awning panels and not a slider, because that's a very different look.
I agree. I think the depth with the slider would be different, especially at the front of the house.
So now it seems like the only condition that needs to be addressed is condition 2. Potentially.
And all those windows, they're either recessed in the porch or on the side of the building, correct?
All windows on the house are currently recessed, yes.
No, not recessed just within the opening, but can you pull the front picture back up again?
This one?
Or actually go back to your window diagram. There you go. Okay, so the windows we're talking about, other than the ones that are on the back side of the porch, everything else is on the side or back of the building.
That's correct. 12 and 1 and 2 are technically on the front. You've got 11, which could be seen from the street, and 3 and 4, which could also be seen from the street. 5 and 6 aren't going to be very visible, and the rest of them around the back or the side.
Okay.
Does anyone have any, do we have any edits to number 2 as a group?
I guess looking at the way the windows 1 and 2 are recessed in the porch and the others are on the side, I'm not sure that that's something I want to commit to or necessarily need to commit to 2.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts or opinions on omitting 2?
I would agree to omit it. I feel since they're on the side, it's warranted.
Okay. How does the applicant, really quick before we move into it, so there's 1 through 7 of the conditions, so essentially we'd be talking about moving forward with an approval with conditions of accepting 1 and then 3 through 7. Are you guys amenable to that? All right. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness application for window replacement at 3135 7th Ave North, a contributing property in a local historic district, to approve with conditions listed in the staff report 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay.
If I may.
Yes.
Just one clarifying question. So we're not looking for the wood mullions to remain or the existing mullions to remain on any of the paired windows to utilize what they're proposing in the application, which is the vinyl or the metal. I think it's a metal backing with basically the vinyl flange window. I just want to clarify that we're all on the same page. All right, great. Thank you.
All right. Can we take a vote?
Yes. Marvier?
Yes?
Davis?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes?
Nelson?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
Drake?
No.
And that motion passes.
Okay. Thank you.
Could I make one additional comment?
Yeah.
I'd like you, I'll show you a picture of what I'm thinking about. I just think that that might enhance the look of your house quite a bit, but we did not make it a condition.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. And at this point, we will move into updates and announcements.
Ready for it?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. And thank you for attending today on such a short agenda. We only have one case. Looking forward to next month. We are already looking at 3 certificates of appropriateness and 1 land use amendment case. There could be additional discussion items added to the agenda. One of the things that we could potentially do as a commission in workshop session after completion of the meeting is to discuss a forthcoming joint meeting between the commission and the city council. We don't need to do that in May. We could do that in June, but the joint meeting is tentatively scheduled for August 28th at 1:30. The purpose of that joint meeting is for this commission to meet and discuss with the city council all matters pertaining to historic preservation, whether that is language in the comprehensive plan or language in chapter 16 of the land development regulations. There was a meeting 3 years ago, and at that time it was decided to have a 3-year period and then come back and have another joint meeting. So if there are issues that you think are reoccurring or need to be addressed maybe a little more deeply in the code language, based on your experience here out in the community, that is something that I would ask you to consider now and bring that to our attention as staff so that we can properly prepare materials ahead of that joint meeting to help your discussion with the council members. And if you'd like, we can schedule a workshop after the meeting next month. We would adjourn the public hearing and then immediately just transition into a workshop discussion if that is helpful to you. Or we can schedule that at a later date.
I have a question about that. So I wasn't here 3 years ago, and so is it possible, was that meeting recorded, and is it possible for us to either be sent the minutes or perhaps even, the recorded meeting? That way we can watch back and see kind of what those topics of conversation were so that we can prep even for next month's workshop to watch that beforehand. I'm not sure.
We'll have Ms. Nguyen email you a copy of the report that was prepared.
Okay.
The report had a lot of backup material.
Okay.
Kind of setting up each issue, discussion items. So we will have that report emailed out to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Some months ago, I had given the commission a number of recommendations regarding what might be done to further enhance historic preservation in the city. If we could have those recommendations sent out to the commission again, I'd appreciate it.
Of course. We'll include that in the same email,
Great.
the earlier packet.
Perfect.
One of the other things I wanted to just mention, some of you have worked with Liz Abernethy over the years, and she is in her retirement right now. So we still have her for a couple more weeks of work in the month of May, but she'll be officially retired. So there has been some discussion about our department, how that might look afterwards. And so the city and the administration is still working on reorganization of the department and leadership, and so we'll have an update for everybody shortly on what that might look like. Preparing for Historic Preservation Month in May, I did want to let you know we did send out an invitation to all the neighborhood associations that include a part or in whole National Register and local historic districts. So our invitation was to come out and meet with the association and give historic preservation specific presentation. We haven't received any responses or invitations back yet, but of course we were targeting Historic Preservation Month, but it is an open invitation. So whether you received an invitation or you're just watching the meeting today, we are prepared to come out to any neighborhood association at any time of the year and give a presentation on all aspects of the historic preservation program, whether it is incentives or regulatory understanding of how the code is set up. Finally, I'll mention that our department continues to monitor state legislation. So obviously they're in session right now. On April 22nd, I believe, is the 50th day of their session. All the committee meetings will be coming to a close, and so at that point we'll have a better sense of what bills might still be active. And then the session closes 10 days later on the 60th day. And so we're just continuing to monitor that, whether there are planning related issues or preservation issues. There are a number of planning and zoning issues that we are monitoring right now. So we will be able to report back to this commission and update, whether that is through maybe some written correspondence by email, or we can give a presentation at the future meeting in May or June. But that concludes our updates for you right now. Thank you.
I think that that would be really great after session ends to have a workshop on what does go through with this session.
Okay.
Quick question. The invitations that were sent to the neighborhood associations, were they emailed or mailed, physically mailed out?
It was email invitations to Downtown Neighborhood Association, Historical Northeast Neighborhood Association, Historic Kenwood, Uptown Rosa Park, and then we also had included community services for distribution, and if there were other associations that they were familiar with that might be interested, they could be routed through their office as well.
Okay, thank you.
You brought up several months ago one of the House bills, I guess, that was approved, and if I understood it correctly, it limited reduction in zoning or something. Is that, do I have that right, and do you remember which bill that was?
I think I know what you're referring to. So following the hurricane impact at Fort Myers, there was a prohibition for a period of time on land development regulations that were determined to be more restrictive. And there was a perimeter buffer around the landfall point within which that rule applied. We were within that original buffer. And so for a period of time, we were communicating that to the public because we were under that restriction. That has since gone away, and we are not under that Fort Myers related emergency action.
Okay, thanks.
There is a new bill in the legislature right now that is being considered that does come back into a restriction on land development changes following a emergency storm impact. And so that is one of the bills that we are monitoring right now.
Thanks.
Great. All right. Does anybody, do you have any more updates? Does anyone else have any updates or announcements they'd like to share? Okay, all right. Well, thank you all, and we are adjourned.
My name is Adrian. I've been with the City of St. Pete for about 3 years. My job title is environmental tech. That means strictly rodent control and basically keeping the rodents out of the structure or the home. Basically, the service that we provide is a free service to the residents. Kind of go through an interview process with the customer, what they've been dealing with, how long, how often.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The City of St. Pete. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
And then from there, an exterior inspection takes place. And then from there, it's pretty much education, which is key. The more the customer knows, the better we're going to be able to assist.
But the flap's sealed right now, so that's excellent.
The most common problems are going to be entry points. When we get those cold snaps, rodents are just like us. They want to be inside, they want to be warm. So the first place they're going to look for is set up inside the home. So we want to go ahead and get those places sealed off, which is pretty much the most important part of pest control. Sanitation definitely is key. Not giving them a food source to keep revisiting. My job is important because of the fact that rodents do carry a few different types of diseases. They can basically make you sick. As a last resort, we do provide bait boxes to the customer to kind of try to help control the population. I've been in the business for over 20 years now. I think it's a sense of enjoyment being able to help others that may not know exactly what to do in the field of pest control. So it's kind of a privilege and an honor to be able to help that customer and be able to walk away knowing that that customer's been satisfied with the service that's provided.
My name is Lisa Plani and my business is Dress Up Studio. It's actually a boutique, one of the newest boutiques in downtown St. Pete on the corner of 1st Avenue North and 6th Street. I'm from Puerto Rico, and in Puerto Rico, fashion is big. I guess like everything started back with, my parents, right? Like especially my mom. My mom loves fashion, and of course, when she had her 4 kids, like everything kind of like all the attention like turned into us. So I was, early introduced to fashion. I had a passion for it. So I really wanted to have a space where I could find pieces, for any occasion. I was in an environment that was highly dominated by male, and I wanted to obviously, keep it professional, but still be true to myself. And, fashion was that, way to really, be able to have fun. St. Pete is very special in the sense that it truly supports small businesses. And I really feel like when you go out there and you have the opportunity to really engage with other business owners, they're extremely helpful as well. And I think that's incredibly valuable. There's something in here for every single person. They just need to come in and play with us.
When we talk about the Indian mounds, and Rui, you may think of it this way too, I think of that big sign out on Park Street that says, Panfilo de Narvaez landed here.
Everyone assumes that they landed somewhere on the Pinellas Peninsula when you can't really say exactly where. There were probably Indian mounds that covered the city from the Coffee Pot area all the way around the peninsula, up the west side of the city to to where Seminole is today, because there's still traces and evidence of them.
So there are a couple that remain here and there, but what happened to the rest of them? How come we don't see them in more spots around town?
When the automobile arrived in Florida and into St. Petersburg, imagine having an automobile with a tire that's that wide trying to drive up down Central Avenue and around downtown, getting stuck a lot in the sand. So a lot of those Indian mounds were used by city leaders. They used it to actually pave the streets of downtown St. Pete.
That's what became of history in that regard, huh?
Exactly.
Wow.
So every time Central Avenue and 3rd Street, when you cross Central Avenue, you say hello to some of the Indians that may still be there. Who knows?
Who knows?
My name is Chan Srinivasa, and I'm the first African-American city clerk for the city of St. Petersburg, Florida. To me, a trailblazer is someone who sets out on a journey to accomplish something. An individual who sees a path or has a path, and even though obstacles may be in their way, they find ways to get beyond those to reach their goal. To me, that's a trailblazer. I began my career 24 years ago on January 26, 1998. It was a cold, rainy day. I started in the Parks and Recreation Department as a temporary employee on the waterfront, cutting grass and maintaining our parks. Throughout there, I developed as an individual, as a person, but also as an employee of the city of St. Petersburg. And from there, in 2014, I was appointed as the city clerk for the city of St. Petersburg. The city clerk is a very responsible role. Not only are we responsible for the legislative issues of city council, but also our city elections. If you look at the history of how elections are, and being the first African American to hold the role of city clerk in conducting our elections in the city of St. Petersburg, it's a significant role because that within itself is literally setting some type of trail for others to follow as well. It dawned on me the day that I got appointed that I'm the first. And being the first, you always want to be the best at what it is that you do. Failure is never an option for me. If obstacles come, you strategize and you adapt and you go beyond them. Personally, my grandfather, a gentleman by the name of Josh Stanford, the greatest influence in my life. Professionally, There were two individuals, Thomas Jet Jackson and Clarence Scott. Jet taught me the importance of community and showing compassion towards people and always making your presence known. Clarence taught me the significance of being not necessarily a perfectionist, but doing your best and also reaching back, helping others, and never forgetting where you came from. St. Pete is progressing, and we're becoming a more diverse and inclusive community. And it says a lot about the character of the people of the city of St. Petersburg, that we look beyond someone's skin color, but we look at the content of their character. To me, that's what it says.
Pablo Mardones. I'm the owner of the Chrome Factory here in St. Pete.
I'm Angie Gray. I am the assistant right-hand woman of Pablo.
Me and my friend Felipe, we opened this store together. We had this idea that we were kind of tired working like our corporate jobs, you know, although life was very like stable and all that, we wanted just to have something like of our own and kind of like work a little bit more like the life-work balance, you know, in our favor. So we decided to open a restaurant. We are in 57, the corner of 57 and Central. So like we are 1 block away from the Sunrunner, which is pretty cool too. Like before we open, like we didn't know this is gonna happen. We have a stop right here, like less than a block away, and so we are very close to the beach, but not too far from downtown.
I actually quit my corporate job and wanted something more like local, family-friendly, work-life balance, as you said. I submitted my resume to the Crumb Factory, and not even 10 minutes later, Pablo got back to me and was like, "Hey, come in for an interview."
We produce everything here in-house, like...
And you can watch us do
yeah.
it. People just enjoy coming here and like being part of like this little family local
Yeah, I think we have been very well received.
It's really like kind of laid back. It's not like your stereotypical coffee shop where like people come to work or people come to like sit on their computers all day. Like we do have some customers that do that, but for the most part, everyone's here like they want to socialize. We get a lot of regulars, and yeah, like everyone loves bread, everyone loves pastries, so yeah, it's great. I've even been out and about in St. Pete, and people have been talking about like the Crumb Factory, and I'm like, I work there. Like, like this is so exciting.
That's one of my goals. Like I want to be a place that people associate the Crumb Factory with St. Pete. You know, so it's definitely important for us to be really part of the city.
I want it to be fun. I want people to ask questions like, why are the cows flying? Why does the girl have two faces? All of my artwork, I want to hint at a story that you can fill the blanks in with. My artwork tells my story of navigating femininity, faith, and Latinidad through my paintings. Having something that is gonna live on and that people will stumble upon, like, wow, this really is super cool. I'm Christy. I've always been an artist. It's never really been a choice that I've made.
I was really blessed to grow up in a multi-generational family. So my mother and both of my grandmothers were very influential in my life. They were women who were very family-oriented. That commitment extended to the larger community, and that created a very secure and safe environment for me to grow up in.
Most of us growing up in the 80s were latchkey kids. When I started going home after school, Alone was the very first Oprah Winfrey show. And I really looked up to Oprah in the way she was able to talk to people and learn about lives that were things that maybe I didn't see in my own community. Back in small town Louisiana, opened up a whole new world to me.
My childhood was full of family, so my role models were my immediate and extended family members. And while many of them are no longer physically here with us, I still have all of their teachings, the lessons, the love for family, the hard work ethic, laughter and talking that applies to my life now, that I hope my daughters will carry into their lives and hopefully eventually their families.
My mother is definitely the strongest role model in my life. She was the instrumental person in getting us out of Cuba. She taught me the importance of being independent, being resilient, and also as a working mom, she taught me that you could balance a career, family, and God.
I am very hopeful about the future of women leaders in St. Pete. It's very promising.
Already we have women in management positions and in leadership positions.
We have women in some of the places that we've been wanting to be for decades.
There's lots of women in every single role in the city, whether it's police officers, firefighters, and leadership.
The one thing that I love about the female leadership that's in place is that they are making a path for other women to follow.
But we also have a lot of work to do because I think we can diversify that pool of women still.
You have to have people of all walks of life. Everyone brings something different to the table, and it's important to hear all of those perspectives in order to find something that works best for everyone. After all, we're representing a very diverse, very large city now.
Women have such an important role in our culture.
The future of women in St. Pete has never felt brighter.
Mentor a young lady or find a mentor for yourself.
Be sure to honor women in your life.
This month and every month.
What do you know about the Coliseum? That was a boom time development, wasn't it?
It was pretty much the place where people went.
Sure.
For entertainment. I mean, you hear some of the stories of the bands that played there, and it was amazing.
Most of the big white swing bands, I think, played there. And because it was in the segregation area, the counterpart in the black community was on 22nd Street South with the Manhattan Casino.
Correct.
And of course, they had all the big name bands come there and play as well.
The Coliseum in the 20s and 30s was kind of like the Amalie Arena of today, where everybody who was anybody musically performed there. But didn't some of the acts perform at the Coliseum and then that same night leave and go play at the
Absolutely,
Manhattan?
they sure did. And sometimes they would gather for impromptu jam sessions in people's houses, I'm told.
That's very cool.
Yes, it is.
is Dominic Colangelo. I am the ground maintenance here for Treasure Island, City of St. Pete. And essentially I make sure this place stays, up and running, clean, help with any little things that may go wrong. When I come to work, the first thing I do is I blow the sand, leaves off the deck, kind of clean it up over there. And then after all that's said and done, go down to the beach, make sure everything's all picked up over there, rake the area, make sure it's nice and clean. It's the start of my day. I really do enjoy my job. I get to hang out at the beach all day, meet some interesting people. It's cool. I've had a couple of people come up and they didn't realize this was owned by the City of St. Pete, so we kind of give them the story about it. Mayor John Brown donated this property to the City of St. Pete, and it was basically for the residents, for their families to come to enjoy the amenities that we had here, like the restrooms, the indoor showers, playgrounds. So he donated that to the community. Today's a beautiful day. I love feeling the wind. I love looking at the water when I drive around. It's kind of peaceful. It's kind of like I'm just by myself, getting the job done, but it doesn't feel like work. I like the freedom. I like being out by the water. It's always a beautiful day, and it's something a lot of people don't get to do.
Hey, Bubba. Hi, good morning. Hey, you ready to come out? You ready for breakfast? My name's Amy DePalma, and I am a nature preserve ranger here at Boyd Hill. The specialty of my job is overseeing the Birds of Prey program. We take in permanently injured, non-releasable birds of prey, and we turn them into avian ambassadors. We take these birds all throughout the county, from the Saturday morning market to schools to assisted living facilities. When you're talking about conservation, sometimes it can be kind of a bore, but when you have a great horned owl sitting on your arm talking about conservation, people are a lot more inclined to listen, to pay attention, especially since these birds have injuries due to human interaction in some way. Conservation efforts in general are really important around the world, but specifically here at Boyd Hill because we do live in one of the most densely populated counties in all of Florida. It's really important to conserve these small parcels of land. All of these birds that we have here live throughout Florida. We also have to worry about their diet and feeding them, so we weigh them almost daily to make sure that their food fluctuates with their body weights. We also have to do medical care, but aside from me, we have 54 volunteers that help make this program run day to day. There's a lot of maintenance that goes along with these birds, and it's a group effort. It's not just me. Step up. Up. No, you want to face everyone, huh? You got an audience. They're just like people. They have good days and bad days. So sometimes when you walk in, they want nothing to do with you, and other times you're walking around the corner and they're chirping and yelling, saying, "Come in here and feed me." So it's really, really, probably one of my favorite parts of the job is just interacting with these birds. Hey, Dance. Yeah, so this is Dancer. He's a red-tailed hawk. He is 19 years old. I mean, I get to spend my day in a nature preserve. So I am surrounded by nature and surrounded by nature-minded people, which really excites me. So interacting with kids and adults and just spreading my passion is really what I love about this job.
I'm the youngest of 7 girls, and so I had lots of female role models. One in particular is most definitely my mother.
My mother has always been my strongest influence. I distinctly remember growing up in South America, there were not very many opportunities for women in leadership, and my mom really made her own place.
One of my grandmothers had ovarian cancer, and my other grandmother had 4 cancers. In the late 60s, went in for a lumpectomy. They did a double radical mastectomy. She woke up being taken down to her breastplate. For her, that was incredibly humbling because her whole identity was being in the community, and she felt embarrassed, and to some extent that her womanhood was gone. And so watching her overcome that and thrive was really, that was inspiring as well.
Growing up, I really admired one of my high school teachers in particular. She was this incredibly brilliant woman who was tough, who was smart, and who also would give everything to help her students.
I think it's critical to have a mentor. I found mentors that taught me self-acceptance, self-love. They help you find a way. They help you find an opportunity to a path to your full expression.
Well, I think mentorship is extremely important to the pathway to success.
Having someone there who is really going to be the shining example, who is going to be your guide through life, is really what's so important and what so many of us need.
Every life, you should have somebody that is your champion and somebody you can champion. And I think that's really important as we think about elevating others.
Oh, St. Petersburg Leadership for Women is outstanding. I think we are positioned perfectly.
I feel so very fortunate to live and work in a city like St. Pete that's inclusive, that's progressive.
I believe that we are a future that will be kind and generous.
There's great support amongst the women leaders to collaborate, to make a difference, to solve complicated problems, and they're brilliant, brilliant women.
This community has not just great women leaders, but a platform where they're elevated and able to do things that are meaningful and that really impact our community. And that's part of the reason it's such a phenomenal community.
Women have such an important role in our culture.
The future of women in St. Pete has never felt brighter.
Mentor a young lady or find a mentor for yourself.
Be sure to honor the women in your life this month and every month.
I started this company almost 20 years ago out of my parents' garage. Growing year after year after year, you eventually, can grow out of a garage space really quickly. Scooter Cardoza with Trinity Graphics. I'm the owner here, and we do screen printing, embroidery, and promotional products. One of my long-term goals was to have a brick and mortar space. It took us a little over 12 years, but we got this space. Talk about a, kind of like a life-changing moment. We print lots and lots and lots of t-shirts. And then as far as like on the embroidery side, anything you can think of, we can accomplish with putting a logo or a brand on. One of the aspects of screen printing is reclaiming the screens, so you can basically reuse the screen over and over and over and over again. We had about 150 of the wood frames and thought it would be really cool to do a screen wall. So each screen has some sort of sentimental, meaning behind it. We love what we do, so we're just going to continue to put out, a great product that we stand behind. It's really cool to have a team that believes and has the same passion and will, go the extra mile to do whatever it takes to get the job done. There's been a big push for keeping St. Pete local. It's been amazing to feel that love from the community and local businesses that will allow us to thrive in the community for another 20 years.
When you look at the top concern for residents in an urban city or even our rural communities, a growing number of Americans list affordable housing at the top of the list. Here in St. Pete, it's no different. I'm standing here at the Shores in South St. Pete with 51 new affordable units made possible by a county-wide collaboration. Understanding the relationship between our quality of life and housing is critical. That's why I'm launching the Housing Opportunities for All plan, an intentional expansion to our existing housing plan that addresses the current state of our city. The plan aims to produce new affordable housing units, preserve existing affordable housing, and protect tenants. Housing Opportunities for All is more than a priority in our administration. It's a foundational part of our mission, a pillar for progress. This year, we've designated more than $40 million to build new affordable housing units and plan to help thousands of residents preserve their current homes over the next several years. We've also implemented powerful protections for renters with our Tenants' Bill of Rights. There is nothing more important to me and our City Council than improving the quality of life for the people of St. Petersburg. And these are just a few examples of the impactful work that's underway right now. I will continue to keep you updated on progress made as we help more families settle into their new homes and stay in their current homes. So working together and listening to each other with our eyes on inclusive progress, we will continue to move the needle on affordable housing. To learn more about the Housing Opportunities for All plan, visit www.stpete.org/affordable housing. We are St. Pete. I think a trailblazer is a person who looks at the needs of now without high regard for the status quo or the way we've always done things, but focuses their work on how you make our community better today and for generations to come. None of us stand on our own, and so in order for me to be elected mayor, there were so many folks in generations before me that had to fight even for the right to vote, or even for the right to be a full-fledged police officer like Leon Jackson. I just looked at myself as the next in a line of folks who are working to move our community forward. Without the Leon Jacksons of the world, I certainly wouldn't be in this position. And without guys like Bob Stewart, former city council member and county commissioner, who's one of my mentors, who served with both me and my father, without those folks also pushing, we wouldn't be where we are today. I attended the last segregated class at Melrose as a kindergarten student, that I'm able to go back to that and talk to those students as the 54th mayor of our city. That's a lot for one lifetime. As I go around the classroom, I do this for Great American Teach-In, and ask the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the last time I went, there were 3 kids that said, I want to be mayor, and one young lady who said she wanted to be president. That's what it's all about. It's just making sure kids understand you really can achieve. Progress doesn't happen without someone who challenges the status quo, the powers that be, and speaks up for folks who are largely silenced. There is such a thing as a silent majority, folks who are too busy putting food on the table, taking care of their kids or their parents, to be involved in the political arena. And so the folks that do that represent a lot of folks who can't be engaged. Find someone, reach out to someone that you admire who's made it, and reach out to them. Email, Facebook. I guarantee a lot of folks will actually respond to that. I certainly will if someone's interested in elective office. Reach out, make that first step. Never be bound by the status quo or someone else's opinion of what you can or cannot do.
Camp Ignite is a 1 to 3 day program geared to help girls build their self-confidence and for St. Petersburg Fire Rescue to show them what we have to offer. It's going to be action-packed. They're going to get their hands dirty. They're going to be a little tired at the end of it. But when it's all said and done, they're going to hold their head a little higher. They're going to leave a little more confidence to go out there and get after whatever it is that's their calling.
They'll get CPR certified by me. So I have the joy in teaching them that. It's a lifetime skill. They'll still have the CPR certification and the knowledge of it to take with them for the rest of their lives.
We want to ignite. We want to empower them. We want to be proactive in reaching out to them at an early age to expose them to the possibility of being a first responder.
Exposure is huge. I didn't get into the fire service until after I started my military career. I'm embarrassed to say I really didn't know much about it. And I got into it because we had to do onboard firefighting on our ships, and that kind of led me down that path. I didn't have a program like this.
It's important for us to have female mentors to help girls be able to see what they can possibly be one day.
If you can see it, you can be it, right? So that just inspires them like, hey, if she can do that, so can I.
This is our way of being proactive and ensuring that we have a very diverse workforce that reflects the community we serve.
We have a big mix here. We got more people coming. I think it's just important for us to look like who we work for.
We're being firefighters today. We basically trained to be a firefighter. We learning how to do things that the firefighters do.
I really like the hose because I learned how to put out a powerful water supply out of a fire hydrant. The coolest thing I've done out here is putting out fire. The coolest thing I've done is probably walk down a tower. It's like having a ton of adrenaline go through your whole body, and then it's like you're scared, but like you know you're safe.
I think it's a cool idea, and I like how they put this together for girls to learn about firefighters and show that you can be anything you want.
I feel like it's great for me because I want to become a firefighter when I grow up, and becoming a firefighter, you get to help people, and usually when you call in, it's usually the worst day of their life, so you're there to make that better. I think they're pretty cool. I think I would want to be a firefighter. It seems fun.
I never really thought about doing it before, but doing this actually kind of changed my mind a little bit.
Together we ignite. Together we ignite. Together we ignite.
Together we ignite.
Together we ignite.
Together we ignite.
Together we ignite. Woo!
PCCA, Gibbs High, was high school that was invented because initially black people didn't go much beyond the 6th or 7th grade. And they created it. And then they put this performing arts magnet there. And I remember the first time I went there, just the art in the hallways that was from students, very sophisticated. And I thought, who wouldn't want a job there? Teaching motivated, talented young people. And obviously you were called because you taught, how long did you teach at Gibbs?
I believe I taught for 9 years, 8 or 9 years. Yeah, a long time. I think teaching at PCCA for those years made me a better artist.
Mm-hmm.
working with young artists and inspiring young artists. But beyond the inspiration, teaching them how to coexist as artists in the community. They did not seek artists who were teachers. First, you didn't have to have a teaching degree to work in the magnet.
I didn't know that.
No, they wanted you to be an artist first. So you came with your artist degree or your art, and then from there, once you were inside, because I didn't have a teaching degree, once you were inside, once you got hired, then they put you through, Pinellas County School District has a phenomenal program so that you could get your teaching license. They wanted all of their educators to be working in the community so that their students had the opportunity to network and with the community members so that it strengthens the school and it also strengthens the community. And I think that was very important. I think it's a pivotal part of the program. I think it's a thing that makes it successful. And then not just the community as in St. Pete or the Southeast region, but our national community too. Because so many of our artists, visual and performing artists, have gone on to do great things. Broadway, LA, and beyond, tours, all those things, yeah.
I'm Dr. Tanja Williams. I am the first African American and female president of St. Petersburg College in St. Petersburg, Florida. My definition of a trailblazer is a person who has a fire burning in the bottom of their belly that they just have to get out. A person who's willing to practice courage over comfort, who's willing to step out and do something that no one has done because they feel passionate about it and they feel that they have something that they could add to it to help make things better than they are now. Being one of the very few St. Petersburg natives born and raised in St. Pete, getting a job at St. Petersburg College alone was a big deal for us. Growing up, I did not get to see African American college presidents. As a matter of fact, I don't believe I had an African American faculty member when I was going to college. So to be president was not something that I thought was in my reach. It wasn't a part of my vision. But when it came to fruition, I realized that it was such a huge honor and a huge opportunity to help others understand that it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So being the president of SPC is an honor, it is a privilege, it's also a lot of hard work. One of the biggest moments of a college president is the investiture. I remember fighting tears because it's a part of my journey that my mom, who helped get me there, was not able to join me. She had passed away. She said, Tanja, you're gonna do some cool things in life. I'm not gonna be here to see it, but I know you will. And she said, don't sell your soul to get it, and don't sell your soul to keep it. And I remember standing on that stage saying to her, we did it, and I did not sell my soul. I've had a lot of people in my life who stood in the gap for me to help me do what I didn't think I could even do myself. People like Helen Callier at George's Pools. They were one of the first African-American millionaires in St. Petersburg who owned a swimming pool company. They pushed me hard to go to college, and they helped me stay in college. For those of you who are thinking, wow, I've failed 3 times, get up the 4th time. Many of us have failed. Many of us have made mistakes, but you dust yourself off and you keep going. It's all about the possibilities. Don't leave them on the table. Get up, dust yourself off, and keep trying.
The new Minority and Women Business Enterprise Program, referred to as the MWBE program, aims to promote business and economic development for minority-owned business enterprises and women-owned business enterprises in the St. Pete area. Equity and business opportunities are key priorities in Mayor Ken Welch and his team's agenda, and one of his 5 pillars for progress. The MWBE will be administered by the City of St. Petersburg's Office of Supplier Diversity, created to promote fair and equal business opportunities, ensuring equity in contracts and procurement for all members of our community who want to do business with the City of St. Petersburg. The city awards millions of dollars in contracts each year for services, supplies, and construction, which results in the creation of a wide variety of opportunities. The new MWBE program will create participation percentage requirements, providing more opportunities for St. Pete's diverse business community. For more information on qualifications, eligibility, and how to apply, visit stpete.org/MWBE.
Today we honor not just a promotion, but a legacy, a career that spans over 3 decades.
I am so proud of this young man. I know that y'all got something. All I would ask y'all to do is where he feed into you, you turn around and take that same energy and feed into someone else.
I, Keith Watts, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Fire Chief for St. Petersburg Fire Rescue.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Fire Chief, Chief Keith Watts.
As the first black fire chief for the city of St. Petersburg, I recognize the weight of this responsibility, and I know that I did not get here alone. I stand on the shoulders of giants, and it is their sacrifices and resilience that has paved the way for me to stand before you today, and I thank them. I think about new leadership brings about new vision, new goals, new objectives.
What Chief Watts brings to this is making sure that we provide opportunity for everyone who might have that DNA of public service. And so he's already done that with Camp Ignite, reaching out to young girls who might be interested. That's the kind of innovation I think that we need in our city to move forward and make sure that our progress is truly inclusive. That's what St. Pete is all about.
My name is Jacoby Chambliss, and I'm a traffic signal technician here with the City of St. Pete. We maintain our traffic signals here. We have the signal heads, we got the cabinets, we have the controllers, we got the conflict monitors, so we just make sure that everything stays operational and safe. This is a very important job. We make sure that people get to work on time. We make sure you get there safely. That's one of the most important things, is just being safe. Without traffic signals, life would be chaos for us. We come in, we get our orders from our manager. We check our trucks and make sure we have everything we need for today. Our orders can be anywhere from maintaining a cabinet where we go out and clean it out and just make sure all the timing and everything's up to par. From there, it could be calls we get in from citizens saying, hey, you got lights out, and we'll take care of different things. That you got poles that get hit, it's always something different. It's a highly hazardous job. We're dealing with electricity, high voltage you're dealing with, weather. It's a rough job to be out there. You got traffic coming by you, all types of speed. But I can tell you that the City of St. Pete They take pride in what we do as far as taking care of our signals, and we're out here swapping our equipment out at a rapid pace here. We're trying to change out all these cabinets. We're putting in new controllers. We're doing a lot to make sure the city stays safe and to upgrade and change with the times. Every day is just always an adventure. It's always something more to learn. I enjoy the people I work with. I enjoy the city of St. Pete. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy helping the citizens. I just enjoy what I do, man. It's a great job.
Hey guys, St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch here, continuing our Sunrunner bus tour. I'm here with fellow Bull USF St. Pete student Joey Vars. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us what Sunrunner means for a student at USF.
You know, Sunrunner is really a game changer. If you live on the western side of St. Petersburg or by the beaches and you're a student, it really opens up the city to being able to get to town a lot quicker. You can go to class without having to drive. I take my bike from Paso Grill to the station and then I'm downtown in less than an hour and I don't have to worry about driving.
And you were telling us on the bus how you actually get your bike mounted on the bus. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the way that the Sunrunner has it, they have these little bike assists and you wheel your bike right in kind of on the little machine and then it verticalizes it. So it takes up less space. You can kind of stand more compact and you actually get more people on the bus that way too.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today, Joey.
Thanks for having us.
We'll talk to you more on our Sunrunner bus tour.
So the one thing that I would like to lift up and make sure that everybody hears is that there's two Child's Parks. There's the Child's Park that you hear about and that you read about, but then there's my Child's Park. The parameters of Child's Park include 34th Street South to 49th Street, and then 18th Avenue to 5th Avenue South. And that's the Child's Park neighborhood, but the greater Child's Park area actually covers about 3 neighborhoods. It goes to about 1st Avenue to around 30th Avenue South.
I believe through the YMCA, the library, and the Rattlers organization, has become very instrumental in helping our youth and children become very productive adults.
The Rattler program into a GAP program that's designed to engage the community, to build family and community and crime prevention by keeping the kids engaged in youth activities.
I think the emphasis for developing youth in Child's Park arises from some statistics that we received, is that Child's Park had the highest concentration of youth in the city of St. Petersburg.
What we promote is family and community. So what we're trying to instill in them with the program is that we are one big family.
Because a lot of the initiatives and things are always they're heavy focused on programming, or some type of, regimen or awareness piece or a pledge or something else. And we felt that it was important to just allow them to have a space to just come and have fun.
We're solely manned by volunteers, and we let them know that too. So we want them to come back and be volunteers, so the torch is just passed on, so we all learning from one another.
They're not just focused on the athletic aspect of it, but they also focus on youth development. So they have a tutoring program that they do.
And with the YMCA, you have the Rattlers and you have the other programs that's offered. When kids get out of school, they have a place to go. They have the library there.
The STREAM Club stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Arts, and Math. We meet every Friday afternoon at the Childs Park Library. It's kind of an extra opportunity for them to get some exposure to topics they might not know about or might have heard in school and didn't quite stick. We just give them opportunities to have different kinds of experiences and hands-on experiences at that.
The youth have a place to go and children have a place to come daily. Matter of fact, that's a great thing to help kids get off the street, have a place to go, a safe haven you might call it.
One of my brothers, when we first organized this, he said, we're helping to create their back in the day. And I think that's important because, you know, all of us have our back in the day, and I remember back in the day when we used to do that. So our responsibility as the adults now is to help create the back in the day experience for them. And what's happening today is Friday Night Done Right, an event that we created to create a safe space for children to come on Friday nights so they can be free to be kids. Sometimes you just want to remember when you went to the pool and they let you in for free, you know, and that was it. And that's why I think it's important to help create those type of memories as well.
The Childs Park neighborhood, if anyone would ask about it, I would state that it was often misunderstood.
So I'll encourage people to come and see for themselves. More to Childs Park that I've seen more positive in Childs Park than I have seen negative.
And my Childs Park encompasses everything that we described today, and I hope that you will gravitate towards that and balance that once you hear the other stories and the other narratives that come out about the neighborhood.
Sign painting was a very blue-collar job. It wasn't a glorified art by any means. The people that were practicing sign painting, they had to find the most efficient means of going about it. So oftentimes they would draw it directly on and paint from there. And when you take that approach, it's prone to accidents. Sometimes you'll have the proportions a little bit off, or you'll see a little bit of these imperfections. And I think that's really charming. I think that catches people's eye. They feel a little bit more connected to the personality of the lettering or of the sign. Inside an art studio, it was a warehouse, and there was a lot of other great artists, and I realized no one there was really focused on lettering. In that time, they asked me to start painting signs for each different art show that came about, and that really got me the experience and working on a large scale. I totally fell in love with crafting the letters and building them up from scratch. There's reverse glass signs, there's wall signs, A-frames, we have blade signs, hanging signs. There's a wide array. One aspect of the work I do is gold leaf work. It's pretty magical to watch it happen. You're applying these thin sheets of gold to either glass or on the surface, and you paint the background and then remove the excess of the gold, and it kind of reveals the lettering that you painted. St. Pete has a really great small business community, and I've had the opportunity to work with so many great people that started out as clients and become good friends. I really appreciate the trust that people give me to help them and advise on what sign's gonna work best for them. At the end of the day, you eat with your eyes before you do with your mouth, so having a good sign will leave a lasting impression. And you might not always know why you like it or dislike it, but it sticks with you.
Food has always been a passion of mine. My passion from food comes from my grandfather. It was really just born out of the fact that I believe that he wanted to show us the world, and he did that through everyone's different cuisines. So like we would have really elaborate holiday parties, and we would have like Thanksgivings would be all designated towards like a different country, and he wanted to introduce us to that country, and it was through their food. So one of the things, we had a Japanese spread. I was not vegan at that point, but just the art of the cuisine, I was able to like eat with my eyes, and it just made me fall in love with sushi. When I went vegan, I realized I couldn't have sushi anymore. So it kind of started with a cookbook, and I did a pop-up, and then we were sold out, and then I kind of just went from there. I just did pop-ups, markets, and festivals, and I started delivering sushi to people's houses, and it kind of just caught on. I thought to myself, it would be nice to have a place, like a home base, for everyone to come to me, and then also, again, give vegans the experience of what sushi is. Being in St. Pete, I feel like everything is happening on Central. I feel like Central is where a lot of businesses want to be. On a normal day, we would go through 4 pots of rice, and that was like a great day. And now coming to the new space, like we're going through like 8, 9, 10 pots of rice in one night, which is like, for us, is crazy.
Growing up, one of my biggest female role models was my grandmother. My grandmother was an incredible woman. She was hardworking, she was kind, she was sweet, but she was tough. And she really taught me from a very, very young age how important it is not only to work hard for everything that you want, but once you achieve those things, to give back to others.
When you look at who did I look up to, I have to say my mother was definitely the primary one, because she was actually able to take so little and provide so much. She taught me what fortitude was. She taught me what commitment was.
Even in this day and age, it can be really tough for women who are, aspiring to achieve their career goals or their own personal goals for their life. For those of us who are at this level, who have, accomplished some of our goals in life, we have kind of a responsibility to reach our hand out to that next young woman, grab her hand and pull her along.
Well, I think growing up, children learn from those who are around them. And even as they're babies, they mimic everything that their parents do and what they teach them. And I think having the positive role models that are necessary to make the right choices in life, role models are helpful.
Well, really, I think the sky's the limit when it comes to female leadership in our city. I think there is a day when we will have a woman in the mayor's office.
The future of female leadership in St. Petersburg is awesome. It looks bright. I am so encouraged. We take a lot of our lived experiences and we apply logical applications to making decisions.
I am inspired and encouraged by the number of young women who are rolling up their sleeves, getting involved in their communities, and really stepping up to be true leaders.
There was a time where it was, when is there going to be the first female on city council? Then we got to, there's a supermajority of women on city council. And I think that question in terms of whether or not women can be a part of our city and whatever leadership position isn't a question anymore. Women do lead.
Women have such an important role in our culture.
And the future of the women in St. Pete has never felt brighter.
Mentor a young lady or find a mentor for yourself.
Be sure to honor the women in your life this month and every month.
Better to be lucky than good.
That's right.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Reale. I'm chairman of the Development Review Commission. I'll be presiding over today's hearing. On behalf of the rest of the board, welcome. The Development Review Commission is a voluntary group of citizens appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. The commission is responsible for considering requests including special exceptions, site plan approvals, variances, reinstatements, redevelopments, and street vacations. Copies of today's agenda are available at the podium to my right, your left, over here. Certain proceedings on today's agenda are quasi-judicial, meaning that all parties will have a chance to present evidence and testimony to assist the commission in making its decision. In fact, everything on the agenda today is quasi-judicial. If you have questions regarding the quasi-judicial procedures, there's a guide available from the clerk at the center console. All persons who plan to provide testimony today will be required to take an oath prior to speaking. Anyone speaking before the commission on a quasi-judicial item must fill out a blue card and will be sworn in by the clerk prior to speaking. A representative for a group or organization may be designated, but the representative will only be allowed 3 minutes. The pooling of time is not permitted. For each quasi-judicial case on the agenda, a presentation will be made to the commission by a representative from the city administration. Staff, the applicant, and any registered opponent will each have 10 minutes for their presentation. Following presentations, all persons in attendance who have filled out a blue card will be given 3 minutes to speak. If you have filled out a blue card, you will be called by name and asked to approach the podium. All statements, questions, or testimony must be stated in front of a microphone located at either podium. And that's important. If you do speak today, make sure you are at the microphone when you speak. All statements, questions, or testimony must be stated, when addressing the commission, please begin with your name and address and state whether you have been sworn. Once members of the public have had a chance to speak, cross-examination will begin. During the cross-examination phase of the proceedings, city administration, the registered opposition, if any, and the applicant will each have 5 minutes to ask questions of any witness. Questions should be directed to me as chair. I will redirect the questions for the appropriate response. Following cross-examination, rebuttal and closing statements begin. During this phase of the proceedings, city administration, the registered opposition, if any, and the applicant will each have 5 minutes to provide rebuttal and closing statements. If there is no registered opponent, any person who wishes to be a registered opponent may register as a registered opponent with the DRC clerk prior to the beginning of the initial presentation of the case and may participate in the limited purposes of cross-examination and rebuttal closing. If more than one person wishes to utilize the time for the opponent, the opposition must select one representative to present their case. After rebuttal and closing statements, the public hearing will be closed and the commission will go into executive session. The commission may ask questions of the applicant or the public at any time during the proceedings. All motions of the commission are made in an affirmative manner with a quorum of 5 or more commission members. It takes 4 concurring votes of the commission for any motion to pass. Once the commission has voted on your item, we ask that you continue any conversation outside if the weather permits so we can move forward with your fellow St. Petersburg citizen DRC matters. Please turn off all cell phones and similar devices, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. If you are going to speak tonight, please stand to be sworn.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Roll call. Stowe.
Here.
Kiernan. Reale.
Here.
Clemens.
I couldn't hear.
You. Clemens.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Platt.
Here.
Reiner. Flint.
Here.
Padua.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Does anyone have any corrections for the minutes? And if not, can I have a motion for the April minutes?
So move.
Or to approve the April minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
Reale.
Yes.
Stowe.
Yes.
Clemens.
I wasn't here.
You can still
You can
vote.
still vote.
Oh, okay.
Singleton.
Yes.
Platt.
Yes.
Flint.
Yes.
Padua. Yes. Minutes pass unanimously.
Do we have any non-agenda public comments?
We do not.
Okay, we will get right to it then. The first item today, item 1, case number 2554000003. Staff?
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Freeman. I am a planner with Development Services, and I have been sworn. The subject property is located on 11th Avenue North, west of 28th Street North. The subject property is located in the NT2 Neighborhood Traditional Single Family District Number 2 zoning district. It is within the Floral Villa Estates, which was platted in 1924. It is Block 8, lot number 17. The subject property's dimensions are 54 feet wide at its midpoint, 125.75 feet deep at its midpoint, containing approximately 6,761 square feet in area. The property has been developed to contain a single-family residence, which was issued a certificate of occupancy in January of 2007. The application involves a variance request with 3 separate components. The first pertaining to impervious surface ratio of the total property. This is after the fact and relates predominantly to a paver deck in the rear yard. The second variance component pertains to the setbacks of a shed with a covered patio. This is after the fact. This is a codes enforcement case for lack of permits. That is also involving an easement, meaning a separate minor encroachment approval would be required for this structure. The third variance request component involves a fence height, where the maximum fence height for the rear perimeter fence, with the maximum being requested is 8 feet. Here we see a survey of the site property. And, there are the documents pertaining to an easement, which has been identified in the rear yard, a 5-foot easement on this property, and a 5-foot easement to the neighbor to the south were identified. This easement contains both city sewer infrastructure as well as TICO and Duke infrastructure. Again, any sort of setback for the shed and covered patio would need to have a separate a minor encroachment approval for this easement from the engineering department. The first variance issue pertains to the ISR, pardon me. Here we see highlighted in red the ISR total for the property. It was calculated by the surveyor where 78% is present, and the maximum available impervious surface ratio for an NT2 zoned property is 65%. Meaning that the property is exceeding 20.6%, and this excess represents 905 square feet. The applicants describe the home as being designed for to allow for aging in place and use for mobility devices. No formal ADA documentation was provided, and ADA does not pertain to future potential disabilities. To clarify, this deck is measured at 10 inches tall, and thus no building permit is required as confirmed by staff in the building department. I do want to draw your eye to the red circle in the middle of the deck, which is a drain. This drain is associated with a subterranean stormwater system of the applicant's design and build. They've provided specifications of the materials they purchased and a plan of how it was installed here. The LDR does not provide adjustments to the maximum impervious surface ratio for this situation. The only adjustment that the LDR does include is that wooden decks have a 50% reduction for their area of impervious surface ratio. There is no means to ensure the stormwater infiltration volumes, discharge rates, or system maintenance of such a structure. The second variance request pertains to setbacks for a shed and an attached covered patio. The interior side setback for the shed to the east, as indicated in orange here, should be 5.4 feet. It is constructed at 2.9 feet, representing a 2.5 foot variance, 46.3%. The rear setback for this shed should be at 10 feet. It is constructed at 4.4 feet, thus requiring a 5.6 feet variance, 56%. The attached covered patio, here indicated in green, would require a 7.5 foot rear a rear yard setback, and is constructed at a 3.1 foot setback, thus needing a 4.4 foot variance, 58.7%. Here we see drawings and photographs of the shed. The shed contains 120 square feet and is 11.4 feet tall, thus not qualifying for the reduced setbacks of smaller sheds that are a maximum of 10 feet tall and 100 square feet. A shed of this size would be required to meet the standard building setbacks. Previously, the house had stucco and a hardy board detail finish, which did not match the horizontal lap siding of the shed. The applicant has updated the upper siding of the house to horizontal lap siding to match the shed. The department is satisfied that this does comply with the architectural requirement for the two structures to match. However, an after-the-fact building permit is required for this update of the exterior siding of the house, as one was not approved or submitted for. The third component of this variance application pertains to the maximum height of the fence in the rear yard, where 6 feet is the maximum that is permitted, 8 feet is requested, thus 2 feet is the variance, 33.3%. The land development regulation would allow for a 6-foot fence in this area and/or a 10-foot hedge. And there is also a provision that allows for additional screening, such as lattice, to be attached to a fence to achieve up to 8 feet maximum height for the linear distance of 16 feet, 2 fence panels. The applicants requests a variable fence height where they would be meeting 6 foot at their east-west neighbors who are adjoining with those fences, gradually increasing to 8 feet in the center of the rear perimeter, but that 8-foot tall section that they are requesting is 32 linear feet, 4 panels long. This map represents the neighborhood support worksheet that was submitted. It is notable that the neighbor who initiated the codes case for the shed is one of the neighbors who signed, but this support does not offset the large magnitude of requested variances. Staff finds that the variance application is inconsistent with the standards for review and thus recommends denial of the variance request. Should the proposal be denied, the applicant must remove or relocate the shed with attached covered patio to compliant setbacks and must reduce the existing impervious surface area to comply with the maximum impervious surface ratio. A building permit would be still required for the housing siding change. Should the proposal be approved, it will be subject to the conditions of approval as outlined in the published staff report, which include obtaining after-the-fact building permits and approval of a minor encroachment for the easement. Thank you.
Questions for staff?
So, I understand about the permit for the siding on the main house. On the other improvements, do we have any idea when those improvements were done?
The deck appears to have been done sometime shortly after the initial construction of the home in 2007. It would not require a permit. There's correspondence with the building department that it
comply with code, but doesn't technically require a permit.
Correct.
And so, and again, in terms of the fence and the shed, we don't really know.
The fence is before the fact. The shed, I believe the applicant could maybe provide additional details as to when the shed was constructed.
Okay, thank you.
I got a quick question. And so they're going to require, if everything stays where it is now, they would require our approval of the variance and a minor encroachment. I'm not familiar with that process at all. Are you? Can you speak to that? Is that something that's normally done? Is that something that's difficult? Are we doing it in the right order?
From my understanding, the setback pertains to the location of the structure, but its existence in an easement would be a minor encroachment procedure with the engineering department, in which it would also involve communication with the entities that have improvements in that easement, including Duke and TICO and our own Public Works Department. Perhaps Corey can provide more information.
I mean, this would be the first step. If this is denied, the minor easement would not be required. If this is approved, the minor easement may not be approved.
Correct.
So this is contingent on that. Engineering will review that solely on what is currently in that easement, and it's a case-by-case analysis.
And if I recall, it's 4.5 feet, 4.4 feet off the rear yard, so it's 7 inches into the easement, more or less. 0.6 feet, looks like it encroaches 0.6 feet into the 5-foot easement.
The rear covered patio is at 3.1.
The patio, the shed.
That is the lesser amount in this easement.
Okay.
And can you confirm that the shed did not, they did not get a permit for the, not the shed, I mean the covered patio?
Correct. The two attached structures are both lacking a permit.
Okay.
You mentioned something about you can't determine the viability of the drainage system, the underground drainage system. I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on, I'm not an engineer. I'm just curious, why that can't be determined at all. Because I feel like that might help understanding if that works well. It might help lend a decision on the impervious surface ratio. I know the applicant says that it works great. But.
Attachment H in your staff report pertains to the information that was provided for the subterranean stormwater system, with the rear couple pages being the site plan that was provided. There are details and the materials which were purchased online. It does not appear that an engineer was consulted in determining these volumes, and as a planner, staff was unable to provide these stormwater engineering procedures.
Currently, the city doesn't recognize these systems, to offset the impervious ratio that is required for this property. There's not enough data and studies done.
Well, I guess, I can say this for later, but just to confirm, there's no permit required for the pavement, but something that has some sort of engineering design would probably require some sort of review and approval, right?
Even if we had engineering for it, there's not a mechanism
Right.
to honor the increased ISR that is produced by the coverage.
I can ask the question a different way. So there's no.
I do not know if it would require a permit or not.
Well, but there's no. We don't permit any type of. We don't allow any type of retention in the city that's not permitted.
Anything that needs to meet our drainage ordinance or anything that needs to meet building code or SWIFT regulations
requires permit. Okay. Thank you.
That doesn't mean someone
couldn't
do what they consider above and beyond.
I mean, sometimes people might put a French drain in their backyard because they realize they have an issue with ponding, and they can just do that. It doesn't mean it gives them any credit. It's just for their own personal reasons.
I think that if there is a mechanical failure, there's no fail-safe, right? So it's difficult to regulate.
I mean,
since this is private property, would the city have the right to go onto that property, into their backyard, and inspect that system at any time? I think I know the answer to it, but just trying to get it out in the open here.
It's probably a council question, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to say no.
I don't know how many households are in the city of St. Petersburg, but if everybody utilizes the same, I'd have concerns, how does the city enforce anything like this? It's hard enough to enforce a drainage system on a commercial property that in most cases is actually open and obvious. Retention ponds, you do have some vault systems. I don't see a way that you could enforce, a inspection to make sure it hasn't been that it's not silted in. Drainage systems require maintenance because you have to pump out silt, dig it out because they lose volume over time. So just because it is there now does not mean it will be there 2 years from now. So, the ISR is kind of our guidance here. Let's keep it below the allowable ISR. I can see some major problems with, private drainage systems on single-family homes in an area that's not even accessible, should they deny access to it.
I can clarify for a previous question that within attachment I, there's a statement from Gary Strait from the building department on November 22nd of 2024, Below confirmation that a deck less than 12 inches in height does not require a building permit, there's a statement, installation of an alternative drainage system does not require a permit, but will be required to meet all city standards.
Okay. Other questions? All right, thank you. Applicant? Is the applicant here? Yeah. Please state your name and address for the record and then confirm that you've been sworn.
Mary Lynn Garino, address 2834 11th Avenue North in St. Pete. And yes, I've been sworn in.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to address that our easement on our side of our property line is 5 feet, not 10 feet. I don't know if Chelsea was referring to the total easement, 5 foot on our side, 5 foot on the other. We do have the paperwork and spoke with Duke Energy today. All the systems, including electric, sewer system, all have signed off that they're not under our easement or under our property line. The only thing that is there is 4 feet into our neighbors is the sewer line going through. So there's nothing under our easement. And it's 5 foot, not 10. So that changes the numbers of how far we're off. Not by 7.5 feet, but, rather, that changes the numbers that Chelsea reviewed. I don't know also if all the photos of all homes in our area, some were from satellite, and to show the percentage of green space. Okay, you have it. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. I mean, off the top, anybody have a question that I can clear up besides? Okay.
Ma'am, actually, it's better for you to speak because you have limited time.
Okay.
And we can ask you questions and it won't take into your.
Okay, sure. Excellent. Our,
But it's actually better if you go ahead and finish.
we've owned the property for 41 years. Okay, we had a vacant lot there. My parents were older, having health problems, disability problems. So we built a visitability home next door to us. And that's how we first started. So that entails, no steps, wide doorways, all of those things. And it included the goal for accessibility to all of the property. And that's why we did what we did. I attended junior college, updates and trainings for qualifying to be an extended care facility in ECF. So if we wanted to make our home an ECF in the future, we would qualify. We had a person come out, go through the house, and say, hi, you have to have an outdoor storage because you cannot keep paints and gasoline and lawnmowers and all that next to your home. Can't do it safety. So that's when we decided to build the shed, and that was in 2013. Okay, I don't think you all had that. We started to have problems with the neighbor behind us. He has many psych issues. Him believing he didn't understand what an easement was, and he thought he owned half our yard. So there were a lot of threats coming and a lot of issues coming, and then in the beginning of 2024, I contacted code compliance. I think the neighbor behind us has 147 citations, and if you have the pictures, you see what we were looking at. So when I contacted in January of 2024, I got people coming back to me saying, here's what we're offering. We said, can we build a wall back there, because we have a wall on the side of our property on the west side. Can we keep the same architecture and build that? We're higher level than the neighbor behind us, so a 6-foot fence is like a 4-foot fence to us. So we can see all the stuff in his yard and the incomplete, he has a building, a partial room that he's got on the back of his home that's all block. And he doesn't have the money to finish that, he told me. So we went through months back and forth calling construction services, and what were we allowed to build, all of that. And then when that started, our neighbor behind made a complaint and said, oh, I don't like the shed because their shed is on my property, okay? It went back and forth, and finally on March of last year, he actually knocked down the rest of our fence because we moved bamboo so we could build a fence or a wall. And that gave him the opportunity to knock down our fence and move his stuff into our yard and destroy property. And he spent the night in my backyard. That was fun, okay? So we had another surveyor come out. They surveyed and said, hey, your property line's actually 4 foot back. Okay, and that's when our neighbor became very nice and compliant. That's why he signed off, even though he made the complaint, because police were there, took pictures, everything. And so we've had this going on. Now, we always told him, his name is Everett Smith, we always said, we want to do what's right and correct. We don't want to come back later and have to redo anything. So he finally appreciated that. And so now the hostilities have stopped, okay? So we're very happy with that. And he's like, go ahead, build whatever you want, so that he wouldn't fight it. We were very concerned he would again knock down the fence and come and live in our backyard. Everything else in here, I'm assuming you received all our, for the variance, the explanations for the variance. Why did it happen in the first place? Well, because we had family members helping us build it in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. They can build sheds much bigger, I guess. And I was not aware of it. My husband was not aware of it. And then later I'm like, what did you hear from the city? And he told me, and we were like, I go, is that 10 by 10? He was told he could put it right on the property line. So they were not paying attention to being 5 feet from the property line, because I guess if it's smaller, the correct 10 by 10, it can be on a property line. But because it ended up being bigger, I said, uh-oh, this is not good. And that I knew when we got the violation notice. Didn't have anybody come to me. Mr. Henderson never responded to any of my emails or phone calls or texts. The first time I heard anything was in April when I received the violation notice. Would have been happy for someone to come over and look at everything and give us a good idea. And the reason we have pavers is for accessibility, so that whether we have our family, we're aging in place, we plan to be there till the day we die. And my parents were coming there. My dad died because it took so long to build the home. And so this is what we were looking for. I've worked for hospice and palliative care and helped people in their homes for 30 years. So I've seen the people had to leave their homes because they couldn't access their homes. And I've helped many of them redo their homes as a courtesy to say, you need this wider, you need this. So I kept that in mind when we built the home. We definitely wanted it to be a visitability home, and we definitely wanted to be able to age in place, and we definitely wanted my parents to stay there and be able to have access to all the properties. So that's the reason we did all this in the first place, okay? I don't know what else. Did I mention everything? Oh, the height of the shed is 10 foot 2 inches. We're 2 inches off. They didn't know that, that was wrong. We didn't know about the 8-foot fence. We're going from 8, we want the 32 feet, because that's the visitability that we have of the neighbor's yard. And then it will go to 6 feet and blend into each side. That's the reason. We didn't even know we could do 16 feet without a variance, but because where we stand, we can see everything, we're higher. That's the reason we asked for 32 feet. And everything else, if you, the green space, oh, we had 2 hurricanes and we had no runoff, none. And that was good because we were looking ahead, trying to make sure we're very green. We do have the ability to go right down with a tube and see everything underground. So if anything is stuck and we can see that, and we can help. And I've already talked to the guy who came out to visit to do the sewers and asked him, and he said, yeah, we can come on down in the sewer system and go right up yours and see what's going on. Because I said, hey, if we ever have a backup, how do we know? He goes, I'll tell you, because when I come out here, I can go right down the sewer system and look up your system. I said, okay, thank you, because that's all we want to do. And a plumber, a master plumber put that in. We didn't just hoof it. We did it correctly not to have runoff, because that was our concern. And, 5 seconds, okay, thank you.
Perfect time.
Questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. I did not hear Ms. Freeman to say that the easement was 10 feet. The setback is supposed to be 10 foot. The easement was 5 foot. I think that was correctly stated. The setback for a shed over 100 square feet is 10 foot. So there's two different issues here. One is the easement for the utilities, and the other is that because the shed is over 100 square feet, it should have been 10 feet from the rear yard. That's correct, right? Yeah, so.
From the rear.
Two different, yeah, okay. And then, so the fence, the 8-foot fence is not in place now. That's a request. So
correct.
The shed is in place, obviously. You can see, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes sense. So your older fence got torn down, but you're requesting now, before you put in a new fence, that it be allowed to be 8 foot tall from your side of the property.
Yes.
You're saying that would be approximately 6 foot, 8 foot from his side of the property would be approximately 6 foot tall on your side of the property, you're saying?
Yes. Yes. Which is why we chose that height, so we wouldn't have to.
Is there literally a 2-foot step, or is it kind of just sloped down?
It's sloping.
Okay.
It's sloping. It slopes up in the front and slopes down in the back.
So the shed was built in 2013, if I recall.
Yes. Yes.
Was the covered patio, the covered
yes.
pallets built at the same time?
Yes.
And then how long has the deck been in place? The brick paver deck?
After that? About 8 years ago?
So not 40 years ago, not
Oh, gosh, no. It was an empty lot.
not when you built the house.
We built the home.
But how old is the home?
2007 it was completed. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Flynn?
Couple questions. You mentioned something about the city crew running a camera up into the drainage system?
Yes, one of the people that had to come out was from the city and did the sewer lines and checked where it was. And he told me it's 4 feet into your neighbor's property. And I said, and then he had to check what was coming off to our home. And I said, okay, so if we have a blockage or something's backing up, how would we know where that was? And he said, oh, we put a tube down there, a scope, and we can follow right up because the drainage system goes right into the sewer system.
So your pump, your storage well underneath the patio is directly piped into the city drainage system?
Maybe the lateral?
No.
Oh, that goes into leach fields, and we have openings near our home. Are there 2 of them? That the gutters come down, and that area you can use the tubes or whatever he called the visual to go, and from the sewer line he can go up until the drainage, up into the.
I think I've got enough on that one.
Okay.
As far as the easements, are you aware that there is the possibility, whenever you have a utility easement, doesn't necessarily mean that there's a utility there now, but there is the possibility in the future that TECO, Duke Energy, Spectrum, whatever, they could run utilities in the future as needed. Are you aware of that, that just because there's no utilities there now, it could be in the future?
Well, they've run all their utilities along our streets. They changed all of that last year and put everything in. So everything is upfront.
Okay.
And
Well,
that's why we chose a
right
fence.
now, the easement is at the back, so we have to work
Correct.
on the fact that they've got an easement there. So they could
Yes.
potentially put it in the future, which triggers this minor easement and other issues.
Right.
So you're aware of that.
Yes.
And as
Yes.
long as that easement's there, there's that possibility of it being an issue.
And I talked with people on the development.
Another question here, just verifying, you had a licensed contractor build that shed? Or did you build that yourself?
We built it ourselves.
Yourself?
We did.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Other questions for the applicant? Okay.
We had the master plumber put in the drainage.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Do you have any blue cards? No blue cards? Any registered opponent? No. Okay. Staff, do you have any cross-examination?
I can provide a little bit of additional context regarding the Duke and
It'll be for
Tico.
closing.
Yeah.
Pardon?
It'll be for closing.
We're just crossing here.
Oh,
Yeah.
then no, pardon.
Yeah. Do you have any cross-examination questions, ma'am? So that would be for the city staff?
For whom?
Do you have any questions for city staff you want to ask on that?
Oh. I don't think so.
Okay. Staff, do you have closing then?
I do have a little bit of clarification that we can make. That was identified that Duke had a permit issued in 2020. Tico had a permit issued for 2018 for that easement area in the rear of the property. I did want to confirm that I intended to communicate the 5-foot rear easement on this property. I might have indicated that there is a 5-foot on the neighbors to the back as well, producing a total of 10-foot of easement across these two properties.
The staff report reflects that too.
Thank you. The applicants were advised in early April with a phone conversation regarding the 16 linear feet of additional screening, such as lattice of 8-foot height. The discrepancy of shed measurement is presumably from the fact that we are measuring from the ground, not from the surface of the deck. And there is reference in the application to communication with staff previously inquiring about the standards for constructing a 100-square-foot shed, and then the resulting shed not being of that size and height.
Was that in the year it was built? Or was that more recent?
I'm not sure when that communication was, but it's referenced in their narrative information that they inquired of staff of how to build a 100-square-foot shed, and then the resulting shed is 120 square feet. And I do want to bring up again that perhaps a way of maximizing the pedestrian space on this area while still staying within an impervious surface ratio is to consider the use of wooden decks, which are recognized as a semi-pervious surface by the definitions of impervious. The engineering department, from my understanding, also recognize hex block pavers in which there is physically vegetative material planted within the void space of hexagonal concrete blocks.
What relief is there with the hexagonal? Is it the same 50%? Do you know?
It would be proportionate to the vegetative amount, and then the
so
relief.
the space that you put between them. Okay.
Correct. It's not usable for a vehicle area because it would compact the soil, but it is usable for pedestrian areas. And the wooden deck is defined at 50%.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff before we have the applicant's closing remarks?
I do have a question for staff. On not the shed itself, but the trellis or patio, so is the issue there that any kind of structure like that has to respect the rear yard setback? It's not a square footage or a height thing with that?
A covered patio does need a 7.5-foot rear setback.
Right.
The presumption is that there would be noise associated with recreating under a covered patio.
Okay. And then if the shed was 100 square feet or less, and if the shed was 10 feet tall or less, it still could not be within the easement, right?
Correct.
It still should have been at least 5 foot off the rear property line.
It should be outside of an easement, correct.
All right.
Okay, applicant, you have 5 minutes for closing remarks.
Well, the initial phone calls to the city in 2013 when the shed was built, after 4 days of calling and being transferred, we received information of 10 foot by 10 and that we could build right on the property line if it was 10 foot 10. Well, we didn't do that because we didn't want to do that, but we were not aware that you had to be at least 5 foot back at all. At that time, we were told it can go right on the property line, but of course we did not want to do that. And then with the mistakes that were made after with getting help building it and the wrong length of 2x4s. And that was all we were told at that time. Later, we were told different things. Never knew about 10 feet off the back property line. Never knew that. So, you know, that's what we were aware of and what we were told verbally in 2013. But our bad that it is too long, but the other things we were told differently. And that's about it.
Final questions for the applicant?
And I do have a final question. On the shed and the covered deck portion, are they movable? What kind of foundation system do they have?
It's on a skid, a platform on a skid.
Is it a slab on grade or is it a platform? And are there posts, deadheads that anchor it? You need to tell her and then she needs to talk.
The skids are sitting on cement platforms. It would not be easy to move. Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Put it on wheels. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to executive session.
Well, as we know, you can build a 10 by 10 shed on the property line. In this particular circumstance, the person who answered your question probably did not know there was an easement. But you can build to the property line, provided that, you know, there's an easement or some other issue there that probably the person who was calling you did not know you had an easement. Just point of clarification.
So we've got 3 different issues in front of us. One is the impervious surface ratio. When they built the patio, maybe in 2016 or 2017, they just built it larger than the city code allows. They're not required to get a permit, but they're still required to follow city code. On the shed, they were directed that if it was less than 100 square feet, it could be, you know, there was no setback requirements, but as was just stated by Mr. Kiernan, it has to have at least a 5, it has to have at least a 5 foot, because of the easement, you still have to respect the easement. And the third is the fence, which hasn't been built yet. I don't think anybody here is acting in bad faith, but there is a responsibility of the homeowner when they're making improvements to their project, to their property, to become familiar with the zoning codes and the building codes. And it's complicated, and I know it is. But in this case, we've got a lot of violations that just aren't anybody else's fault other than the homeowner, and it's an unfortunate situation that we're here. I think the fence is pretty easy. It's not built yet, and I don't see any justification for it above, you know, that makes this special. Even though there may be a sloped grade between the 2 properties, that's a common condition. I'm more concerned about the impervious surface ratio. We've got a 900 square foot overage. The shed, it's not egregiously bad. It's 120 square feet instead of 100 square feet, and it's 11 feet tall, or 10'3" according to the owners. But I think Ms. Freeman's explanation is correct, that the homeowner's measuring it from the sort of the structure height, and the city was measuring it back to the ground, and there's another 8 or 9 or 10 inches difference between the two. So the main reason in my mind for the shed requirements are for visibility and noise encroachments to the adjoining property owners, and the adjoining property owners, at least in this case, aren't objecting. So I'm still open to thinking about that issue with the shed itself. Those are my comments.
Commissioner Flint?
I'm going to go to the standby that when you come before the board, there's got to be something wrong with the property that triggers the need for a variance. There's been no mention, no argument, no discussion of the applicant that there's a physical hardship with the square footage, the dimensions, anything that would normally be something we could hang our hat on for approval of a variance. There's none of that here. It is purely a series of mistakes by the homeowner and its contractors in too much paver, inappropriate size of shed, and again, the fence, there's no real hardship there. It's, some issues with the neighbors. That's not a property issue that would really give us a foundation for a variance. I'm just not hearing any issues that would meet those criteria for granting of a variance. And I agree with Commissioner Clemens, nothing was done here nefarious. Trying to do the right thing, but it wasn't done right.
Yeah, I think it's also an issue to use aging in place as a motivation, because I think many people could claim that, right? And then before you know it, everybody's trying to age in place, and then we have an issue with ISRs all over the city. And it's, ADA accommodations are, providing reasonable access. And I think in looking at the site plan, there are ways to decrease the area of pavement, and I think there are plenty of options out there and suggestions that would provide, more planter area, providing circulation, different materials that allow for permeability. So for that, this is not the minimum that can be done to provide an accessible backyard.
Chair, would it make sense to split these into separate questions for each variance? I mean, it sounds like there might be some.
I mean, we can vote that way. That's for sure. That's not a problem.
And we can discuss one at a time, so we don't get confused.
Yeah, exactly.
While we're on the ISR, that's always been a big complaint from a lot of neighbors on any construction project is water issues, flooding. Especially the past year, we had the no-name rainstorm that happened the day of one of our hearings here. Streets flooded. So these are important numbers that we need to stick by to make sure that we don't exacerbate flooding issues. Because it's real, it's happened multiple times within the past year. And to essentially pave over everything, and that's essentially what a brick paver is. It's not permeable. The hex blocks, you have to leave a sizable gap between those in order to have any pervious surface. They're concrete. These are brick pavers. They're not pervious. There might be a little bit there, but they're really going to cause water to have to run off into the streets at some point. So I couldn't support an ISR variance. I understand they might want to have some pavers along the sides for access for wheelchairs, things like that. Doing little ribbons wouldn't be appropriate because as you're aging in place, you're also walking potentially with a walker. So we can't do it like a ribbon drive on a driveway. You have potential wheelchair, you have potential people with walkers. But I agree, there's things that could be done to cut back on that ISR to get us to a realistic ISR within code.
Regarding ISR, just because of the title of it, impervious surface ratio, when we discuss these issues, we almost always discuss them in terms of flooding, but there's other completely good and reasonable reasons that we have a limit on ISR, because actually the other parts of the code require then that the parts that are permeable be, vegetative material, so landscaping in other words. And so it's not just about controlling flooding, it's also about the beauty that plants give us, it's about oxygen production. Plants help keep the soil non-compact so that it does absorb rainwater, which, so there's all sorts of good reasons that we.
Limitation on heat islands.
So even if you have the best drainage system in the country, thermal regulation and transevaporation, all of those things. So even if you had the best under-drained system, I still don't want to see 100% of the city just paved over with an incredibly efficient and effective under-drain system. That's not really, there's multiple reasons that we have these ISR limitations.
Can I say something?
You cannot.
I echo the comments about the ISR. I am curious about the shed. If that one seems a little bit more, I think, tricky, just given the situation. But I also, again, just see with the shed and with the ISR opportunities to work with staff and get creative to try to eliminate so many violations. And, that's what I would encourage the applicant to do, is to try to really work with them. And it may not be super convenient, but, there's a lot here. I do honestly commend the applicant for really having in mind the mobility and aging in place. That's very important. And I know that they're, trying to do that. But there seems like there's a lot that could be done if folks got creative and worked collaboratively with the staff.
Well, everything that's existing on site could have been built without any impact to the aging in place, right? The shed could be
5 foot up and 2 feet over.
That's right. So, my big concern, so the problem we see here, and we have more people here than on some of our meetings, but I think that for people that don't understand the process and understand the variance process, because they don't do it as regularly as we do, is that it's just saying, look, this is what we did, it's not that bad, it works, and that's not what a variance is. The variance is looking for some unique hardship, and I don't see any here. And the easement isn't just for where those facilities are located, it's also access to maintain and replace those facilities.
The point, if there's a sewer line, even if the sewer line is favored onto the other person's property, if that has to be dug up, they're gonna have to dig a 6 foot deep hole, and it's gonna have to be 10 foot wide.
Well, and it could be that the replacement sewer line goes on the other side, and then the old one gets dug up, right? And so that's why those easements are established where they are. Now, we don't have the ultimate decision on the easement encroachment, but having encroaching on the easement with a non-structure is one thing, but leaving a structure in an easement is another in my mind. So, I agree that there's nothing nefarious here, but these are all, the easement and these requirements are all there for a reason. And the setback, in my mind, is much more of an issue related to the easement than to some of the normal considerations, just in this case. So it sounds like we, as a group, have discussed through the impervious. Is there any, should we continue then and talk more about the shed? My thoughts are that the shed shouldn't be in the easement area.
At a minimum.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
I would say that at a minimum, it should not be in the easement. And then the idea of the setback, I think they're going to be looking for areas to turn impervious to pervious, and that might be a way to do that, is to have green space along your rear property line.
Right.
By moving both of those structures into the property.
And then, I guess with the fence then, no comments on the shed, though?
Well, the only thing, I think there's a misunderstanding of what's allowed. So what's allowed is a 6 foot and then 2 feet of lattice. That would not be opaque. I don't know if you understand that, but that's what that would be, and that would be the 16 feet. Given the circumstances, I don't think I'd have a problem with making that 32 feet with a lattice and then letting it go back down to 6 feet, but that's just me.
I think we've done that 1 or 2 instances that I've been on the board before where we've increased the allowable lattice area.
I think so.
I haven't seen any hardship for the fence.
other than your
The
neighbor.
only time I think we've really approved an 8-foot fence was when you had a residential property that abutted the old Northeast Tavern up here, 7th Ave, where you had a residential, either new or being renovated just to the north side of the tavern there. And when you look out, a 6-foot fence, you're looking at all this mechanical equipment on the side of this building. And it was pretty nasty looking.
And it's a pre-existing building that was right on the property line.
Yeah, and so we approved an 8-foot because it wasn't separating it between neighbors, and it was hiding something you could really say was pretty blighted side of a building from all the mechanical equipment.
Possibly sound mitigation as well.
Sound mitigation, all that. You might have a code violation on a neighboring property in a residential area. Well, that's what code is for. You can plant bushes on your side of the fence to get the additional height. There are
10
things
feet.
that are possible that meet code and are fully allowable. Because what I get concerned about is we have regulations for setback height, you name it, and then depending on the person, well, I like their story better than this one, so I'm going to give a variance because their story was a little better. That's kind of a difficult thing to approve variances when there's been no demonstrated hardship to justify going beyond what code allows, when you have other ways to mitigate.
I'm sensing a fair amount of consensus. Should we
Yeah.
start discussing some motions?
So do we put canopy and shed together? Yeah.
I think that's for who makes the motion.
Well, I'd move approval of the after-the-fact variance for maximum impervious surface ratio, subject to the staff conditions.
Second.
Blatt,
No.
Stowe,
No.
Singleton,
No.
Clemens,
No.
Reale,
No.
Badalow,
No.
Flint.
No.
That motion fails.
Move approval of after-the-fact variance for rear and interior side yard setbacks for an overhead shed and the canopy. I'm going to add that, and the canopy, subject to the staff conditions.
Second.
Okay.
Blatt,
No.
Stowe,
No.
Singleton,
No.
Clemens,
No.
Reale,
No.
Badalow,
No.
Flint.
No.
That motion fails.
I move approval of the after-the-fact variance for a variance to the height, fence height from 6 to 8 feet along the rear property line, subject to the staff conditions.
Second.
Blatt,
No.
Stowe,
No.
Singleton,
No.
Clemens,
No.
Reale,
No.
Badalow,
No.
Flint.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, we are moving on with the agenda. The next item, number 2, case 2551000001. Staff?
Hello, again, my name is Chelsea Freeman. I am a member of staff, and I have been sworn. There is additional material to be distributed on this. I will explain it.
Do you want the lights back on?
I will explain it. I believe the applicant will reference that material as well. It is communication with a neighbor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I wait while we obtain the material?
Yeah, just give us 30 seconds, yeah.
Okay.
It's Corey stole the legals.
Okay. The subject property is located on 16th Avenue South between 1st and 2nd Street South. The subject property is located within the NT2 Neighborhood Traditional Single Family District Number 2. It is within the Bayboro subdivision, which was platted in 1912, Block 28, Lots 5, 6, and a portion of Lot 4. The subject property measures 110 feet wide by 140 feet deep, thus containing 15,377 square feet in area. its land rights, it would qualify for one single-family dwelling and one accessory dwelling unit. The historic property card, which describes Lot 5, shows 3 dwelling units. There is no historic property card for Lot 6. All deeds since 1973 show common ownership and the 2 lots, Lot 5 and 6, being conveyed together. The Pinellas County property appraiser describes 1 structure dating to 1920 and 2 structures dating to 1940. There was a property card interpretation conducted in 2024 that confirmed a grandfathered status of 3 legal dwelling units having been built and active on the property. And here we see photos of building number 1, which is the front, oriented to the north, and then building number 3 and 2 and 3 are towards the rear of the property, which we can see on this survey as I have labels and shown the floor plans. These are the existing units. We notice in the southeast corner that there is a parking area that is excluded with a fence and a vinyl shed. This is the view as present from the alley. The left hand is looking east. Here we see the unit number 3 and 2 by the big tree. And then the alley looking west, where we can see the parking area, the vinyl shed, and unit number 2. The redevelopment plan proposes to convert building number 2 from a dwelling unit to an accessory living space. This would be by modifying that unit to remove its kitchen. They would then build a new structure on the southeast corner. Ooh. There we go. Where the first floor would contain a garage with accessory living space, and then the second floor would be the 3rd dwelling unit. This would remove the existing shed and parking area. The new structure would be built at compliant setbacks. I understand there's a typo in the staff report that has been distributed. These setbacks are proposed at 6 foot 1 inch rear yard to the south and 6 foot 1 inch interior side yard to the east. That sentence was incomplete on the staff report. And here we see those floor plans with the proposed alteration to unit number 2, which would be converted to accessory living space for use by the residents of the number 1 dwelling unit to the north. And we see the new building with that conversion. Here we see the proposed floor plans. The left representing the first floor containing a 2-car garage and a pool room with attached bath and mudroom. And then the right hand describes the second floor as proposed, a 2-bedroom unit. Here we see the interior facing sides of the proposed structure. The north, that would be looking over their new pool, and the west, that would be looking towards unit number 3. And that is where the entry and covered deck for the second floor, 3rd dwelling unit would be. And here we see the elevations that would be facing the exteriors of the property, south towards the alley. It's notable that 1-car garage door would be leading to what is marked as the pool area, pool room, so it's not counted towards parking spaces, but we'll get there. And then the east-facing elevation. I believe the applicant will have some clarification about some changes that have been recently proposed for these elevations and the floor plan, site changes. Here we see the site data table, where we have 3,919 square feet proposed, which is within the permitted amount, a floor area ratio of 0.21, which is within the permitted amount, a building coverage of 3,052 square feet, an impervious surface ratio of impervious surface area, of 7,846 square feet, 3 parking spaces meeting the minimum, and a building height that is 7.6 feet at the eaves, 22.3 feet at the peak. All of this is consistent with the permitted amount. Here we see a map showing the location of the signatures that were obtained for the neighborhood worksheet. And there has been recent phone conversation, and this relates to the handout that you just received. The neighbor to the east has been in opposition, and that email in your hands is expressing this opposition owing to a concern about reduced privacy for their rear yard with pool area in relationship to the windows, specifically the east and north facing windows of that 2-story structure. Staff finds that the proposal is consistent with the redevelopment criteria as review as outlined in the land development regulations, with no bonuses being requested. And staff recommends approval of the proposed redevelopment, subject to the special conditions of approval as outlined in the published staff report. Thank you.
Questions for staff?
I have two questions related to parking. And it's really just review of the code. This is NT2, right?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be 2 parking spaces for the, I guess what would be the main residential unit and 1 each for the 2 accessory units? So wouldn't it be 4 would be required?
It's multifamily, and I predicted this question, so I kept my back of the napkin math.
Well, that's what, okay, just because it was NT2, I didn't know you could put multifamily in NT2.
It is grandfathered as multifamily, in which case the parking is related to the size of the unit, not necessarily the number.
So that's why I was just trying to figure out how you got there. And that was my guess, but I didn't know that you could do multifamily, but as a grandfathered condition. Okay. Secondly, so even though there is an alley, they are allowed the 12-foot curb cut on the street in addition to alley access?
They have an existing
Oh, there is an existing parking space in the front?
existing driveway in the front is not altered to be proposed.
Oh, that's existing. I just focused on the new.
It is shown on both. There's the existing.
I missed it on the, yep. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff? So I was going to have a related question, but you answered with the grandfathering. But to take it a step further, what would the owner have to do to split these lots? I mean, we see that a lot in to match the platted lot line for the eastern lot.
I don't know if that question has been analyzed. It would interrupt the grandfathered condition of the property containing 3 dwelling units. Typically, there are additional hurdles to reducing the area of a property that has grandfathered increased density.
But if it was split, the west lot would have a primary house and an ADU, and isn't that allowed?
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
The problem, I see it would be parking again, because all the parking spaces are on the east lot.
I'm just trying to see how far off the grandfathering provision has taken us, but that's exactly, we'll save it for a discussion, but that's exactly where I was thinking with that.
Hypothesizing about future separation of the eastern lot, it would be complicated because the dwelling unit would be in the rear, and there is a pool that was recently built in the front, so it is putting an accessory.
I'm thinking much more just density unit count than I am site design, yeah.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant here?
My name is John Johnson. I live at 126 16th Avenue South, and I have been sworn in. So as you see, we tried to comply with all the rules with this redevelopment. We did go around to all our neighbors, including the one. I didn't know that she made an objection here, but based upon our conversation with her, we reached out to the architect to have them redesign the layout of the interior. So we flipped the living room and the bathroom so that the bathroom will be on the side that's her property. So there will only be a little bathroom window that you won't be able to see out of, in order to address their concerns, because they like to be nude in their backyard. But yes, so whoever lives there, we figured they don't want to see that either. So we did, in fact, redesign everything. We did recently get the thing from our contractor, so we have stuff to do bids once we get approval, so we can share that with the city to show that we have, in fact, moved the windows to address those concerns. And
did you leave the stairwell and the?
Yes, we left the stairwell on our side.
Okay, you flipped everything except the stairwell.
Yeah, we literally only flipped the living room and the bathroom. So the living room, you come right in from the stairwell to the living room, and the bathroom's at that end, which actually gives us a little more closet space on that side. But yeah, we figured that so the first window that they'll see is the one from the kitchen out, which is kind of in the middle, so they should be okay, where it's a whole lot less looking at their yard. And as far as the first floor, we are planning to use the little parking space as kind of an area for all our pool toys and stuff, but we do hope to, if a hurricane or something happens, we can pull our car in. So we're not going to make it so we can't use that space if we need it. And we do need that garage space because our front building, which looks big to you, is 850 square feet. So it's a tiny space, and we are now in the middle of an adoption, and we have a 14-year-old that's now living with us. So we need the extra space, and the pool room will probably become a game room too for the kids. You know, they get to play in the garage and not in our tiny house.
So you have tenants in in one of the units, I would assume now.
Well, actually, no. My father, who's 84, also lives with us, so he's in one unit, and the other one we just cleared out. We had a tenant for 2 years there, but we're going to hopefully use that to be my office because I'm currently in the house, and that'll be our spare bedroom when we have people come and visit.
Questions for the applicant? Oh yeah. Sorry. Are you done, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. They're accusing me of jumping the gun. I was trying to read the room. City staff, any blue cards? Okay. It's important in this case because we had this letter. Staff, do you have any cross-examination?
Staff waives.
Sir, do you have any questions for staff you want to put on the record?
No.
Okay.
Staff was very helpful.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any closing statements?
Staff waives.
Sir, do you have any closing statements? No? Okay. He's indicating no. We'll go into executive session.
It's a little bit of unusual configuration in an NT property, but it's pre-existing, and I think they've worked nicely to comply with all the codes. I appreciate their reaching out to the neighbors and, making the change that's proposed in consideration. Maybe it's beneficial for everybody. I think this is a nice project, and I'm going to support it.
Other comments? Yeah, I would support even without the offer of, I appreciate you being a good neighbor, but, we're nowhere near the maximums. This is a grandfathered use. I don't see anything wrong here. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of a redevelopment plan to allow the redevelopment of one existing dwelling unit, subject to conditions by the staff.
Second. Platt?
Yes.
So?
Yes.
Singleton?
Yes.
Clemens?
Yes.
Reale?
Yes.
Madeleine?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, with that, we're on our third item, which is case number 2554000009. Staff?
It's probably.
Have you been sworn?
No.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
All right, good afternoon. Jordan Elmore, planner with Development Review Services. This is case 25-54000009. Address is 3396 Coquina Key Drive Southeast. Here is the property location. It is a waterfront lot. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to the front yard setback to allow for an existing single-family residence to add a bedroom and bathroom addition to the front of the house. The zoning district has a 25-foot required front yard setback. They're requesting 19.6-foot setback, which is a variance of 5.4 feet. Property is zoned NS1. It is one single platted lot. It has lot dimensions of 80 feet wide, 125 feet deep, 10,000 square feet. The existing home was constructed in 1960, and the owners have purchased that in 2021. Here's the site plan. The proposed addition is in yellow with a front setback of 19.6 feet. It's approximately 283 square feet, including the bedroom and bathroom. Here we have the existing floor plan for the property. Here is the proposed floor plan. It would be the fourth bedroom. Here's some elevations. On the left, we have the existing elevations. On the right, we have the proposed. You'll see on the top right corner is where that proposed addition is. We'll have two windows on the front. The exterior material, which is stucco, will also match the rest of the house. and a shingled roof. Here's some site condition photos. You can see the whole front yard is covered in a mix of shell and some landscape rock. That is discussed in the staff report and a condition of approval you'll see at the end. There's another one. The part of the house to the left of the picture is where that addition is proposed. We have received signatures of support from 6 nearby property owners. No additional comments on the case. Here is a map showing the support signatures that were received. We did not get a signature from the owner directly across the street, which would be the most impacted property owner in this case. Staff is recommending denial of the variance to the front yard setback to allow for the single family addition to an existing single family residence. And here are the conditions that would be required if approved, pointing out that 55% permeable landscape vegetation in the front yard and bringing the entire site to 60% required by code. The initial aerial photo, it looks to be in the back. There's quite a bit of pavers and artificial turf, which also play into that impervious surface calculation. That is my presentation. Here for questions if you have any.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Flynn.
Mr. Elmore, is this in a flood zone?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
If it's in a flood zone, we recently, excuse me, approved some new language regarding if it's in a flood hazard area that you could lift the home up as long as your side setbacks are 3 feet, I believe it is, without coming before this board.
It hasn't passed yet.
It has not, looks like it'll probably pass, though.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. So could that, if it were approved, is that something that could happen here where that could be lifted 12 feet in the air with that additional bump out at the front?
Because that is an addition to the front of the house, it would still need the variance to the front setback. If they're just raising an existing footprint, that's where the allowable encroachment comes in. So if a house was built.
But if they were to bump out the front right now and 2 years later come back, they're flooded and they want to lift it in the air, my understanding is they would be able to do that by right as long as their side setbacks were 3 feet. Is that correct?
I mean, and, well, depending on what the front, I would have to go back to the code language too to see if we would encroach in the front and if we even allow an encroachment, so that may not be able to occur.
No further, thank you.
Other questions for staff?
Did you mention how many other properties in the neighborhood have similar front yard setbacks that are?
The analysis of setbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I did just a aerial analysis. They all seem to be in line with a 25-foot setback that the subject property currently has. I believe there were a couple to the north end of that street that were newer, built at a 25-foot setback. And I did not see any variance requests for.
Okay, so there's been no recent variance requests in the last, in this area? Okay.
Not that I was able to find.
Other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant here?
Good afternoon, Mike Van Tiefelen, homeowner 3396 Coquina Key Drive Southeast, St. Pete 33705. I've been sworn in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, so when Jordan and I walked through the application process, and he taught me a lot, like, you know, how the whole process worked, but effectively, a lot of the staff commentary was about the ability to be able to construct the addition in the rear instead of in the front of the property. So as you can see, comments 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 either reference or propose that the addition could be constructed in the rear on the water side versus on the front, as I'm here requesting. So with that feedback, ended up going back to the architect and the engineer and seeing if it would be possible to do the addition in the rear instead of the front as we had proposed. So really, the first page includes comment 3 there I've highlighted for reference, where it talks about that the addition could be constructed in the rear or vertically without requiring the variance. And then here at the top of the page, also highlighted, there's a reference being made that there's sufficient room at the rear of the property to construct the addition that meets the setbacks, as well as the ability to add the second story. So with that, when I presented that information, the staff report to the architect and engineer, they told me, and this is the bold section in the middle, that construction in addition at the rear of the property wouldn't be feasible due to several factors. So the minimum required distance between a structural wall and the edge of the swimming pool is 5 feet, and assessing the area between the potential foundation and the pool would be necessary, which includes evaluating soil bearing capacity, water table conditions, and conducting a structural analysis to assess lateral loads and potential soil movement. Additionally, there's a high potential for flooding in the rear of the property, as it's very close to the body of water. So with that feedback, I wanted to show you what potentially an addition would look like in the rear. So this is extremely small, and I apologize, and hopefully you have it a little bit larger, but there's on the top right there's an addition in the rear, and you'll see that the new structural wall that would be required would be about 18 inches from the pool. So this is the view from the rear of the property, and there's a dotted line that you can kind of faintly see there that would be pretty much where the new wall would be if the addition was constructed in the rear. And in this picture, you can see it a little bit better, how it would get very close to the pool and wouldn't meet that 5-foot distance or setback from the pool that is required. So here I've got the measuring stick out, and it shows the 18 inches there by the pool. The other option would be to go through the rear, and I'll just go step one ahead. So this is the view of the main bedroom in the back, and if we were to access the new addition from the rear, you'd have to go through what is now the main bedroom, which is the main bathroom. And that would basically leave my current main bedroom about a 12 by 12 area, so there wouldn't be access to the existing main or master bathroom if I were to construct the addition in the rear instead of the front as we had proposed. So I had a couple of other pictures here just to give you a view here. This is a view from the hallway into the main bedroom that shows where hypothetically the new interior access hallway would have to be if the addition were constructed in the rear. So, and then we also wanted to be responsive to the commentary in the staff report about potentially adding a second floor instead. And there is, again in bold, the commentary that we received from the architect and engineer that regarding the possibility of building a second story, it is not recommended due to the age of the house. The existing foundation would likely not support the extra vertical loads from a second floor. An extensive structural inspection would be required to determine whether the current foundation framing strength, so the walls, beams, joists, and lateral load resistance, shear walls and bracing, as well as the footing size and depth would be adequate to support additional loads for the second story. So that's why we're coming in front of you today and asking for approval for the variance so we can do the addition in the front. Because for us, my wife and I built our dream home, or bought our dream home in 21, had recently had a baby, so we just need a little more space. And that's why we wanted to do the addition in the front. So thank you for the time. Glad to take any questions.
Questions for the applicant?
Well, I have a question. You provided us two options